In 2000, when Tom Brady was drafted 199th, 5 rounds and 6 other quarterbacks had been chosen ahead of him, the world saw a mediocre talent. He saw an insult. Now, this wasn't just some professional setback. This was a public verdict, a defining moment of rejection that would go on to ignite one of the most remarkable and, longest-running careers in the history of sports. Today, we're going to dive deep into the mindset that transformed this overlooked prospect into the undisputed greatest of all time. This is the story of the obsession protocol. This sentence right here, it's everything. It is the key that unlocks the entire psychological engine that drove Tom Brady for over 2 decades. I mean, think about it. For most guys, the draft is a dream come true, a huge celebration. But for him, it was a public humiliation. It was a judgment broadcast to the entire world that he just wasn't good enough. And that deep personal insult, it didn't just sting, it became the core of his power plant. This was never about a quick, "I told you so." It was about building a reality, an entire career so dominant that it would make their initial judgment look not just wrong, but completely and utterly absurd. 199. You know, this number, it's so much more than a statistic. It's a brand, it's a catalyst. It's the symbol of being a complete afterthought. For Brady, this wasn't just data on a sheet. It was like a permanent mark on his identity. A constant, burning reminder that he began his career at the very bottom, totally unwanted and completely underestimated. And from that one single, humiliating number, he would build an entire empire. Okay, so let's really unpack that moment. Because this isn't just about getting picked late in the game. No, this was the birth of a defiant mindset, the origin story where a single, painful rejection became the very cornerstone of a legend. I mean, really try to put yourself in his shoes for a second. You've just barely scraped your way into the NFL. The New England Patriots took you, almost as an afterthought, in the 6th round. You are, for all intents and purposes, a total nobody. The logical move? You keep your head down, you stay quiet, you just try to make the team. But Brady? Nope, he did the exact opposite. He walked straight into the office of the team's owner, Robert Kraft, looked him right in the eye, and made a promise that was so audacious it bordered on delusional. Now, this wasn't just some youthful arrogance. This was something else entirely. This was a defiant promise. It was a declaration of war on the very idea of mediocrity. And he had to have known, in that exact moment, that to back up a statement that bold, raw talent would never be enough. He needed more. He needed a system, a total, all-encompassing commitment to controlling every single variable he possibly could. And this was the birth of the protocol. But that discipline, that almost fanatical need for control, it didn't just pop up out of nowhere on draft day. Nope. It had been forged years earlier in the fires of total anonymity, born from a constant, grinding struggle just to see the field. You know, when you look at his path, you see this pattern just emerge again and again. This wasn't a one-time thing in the NFL. His entire early career was a fight against being overlooked. In high school, he started as the backup. At the University of Michigan, a total powerhouse, he was buried 7th on the depth chart. So deep, he actually had to see a sports psychologist just to cope with the anxiety. So that 199th pick, it wasn't some random event. It was the culmination of a lifetime spent fighting for scraps. And let's make that struggle incredibly real for a second. At Michigan, the starter might get 20 practice reps in a drill. Brady, he might get 2. Just imagine that. 2 chances. 2 throws to prove you belong, 2 opportunities to show the coaches anything at all. That kind of scarcity, it does something to you. It's clarifying. It teaches you that you absolutely cannot afford to waste a single moment. Every throw, every footstep, it had to be perfect, executed with the intensity of a Super Bowl snap, because he genuinely never knew when or if the next chance would ever come. And right there, that became his mantra. If he couldn't control the coaches, if he couldn't control the depth chart, then fine. He would control the only things he could: his preparation, his focus, and his absolute execution in those rare moments he got a chance. This core belief, forged in years of adversity, it became the bedrock of his entire career. And here's the key takeaway from that time. Systematic obsession isn't a choice. It becomes mandatory when your talent alone isn't enough to guarantee you a spot. So how does this whole history of struggle evolve into a full-blown philosophy? Well, this is where we define the core mindset that would come to govern every single aspect of his life, both on and off the field. This is the obsession protocol. So what exactly is the obsession protocol? Well, at its core, it's the belief that your potential is one thing, but your performance is something else entirely. And the goal is to shrink the gap between those two things until it's practically zero. See, Brady understood a fundamental truth. Talent fades, luck is fickle, but a system, a process, that's repeatable. His approach became this relentless war against variables, a mission to systematically hunt down and eliminate anything, no matter how small, that could possibly get in the way of his peak performance. The protocol is really built on 3 pillars. First, and we've seen it, turn rejection into fuel. That 199th pick was never a scar, it became a jet engine. Second, master process over outcome. Forget about the Super Bowl trophy in February. Obsess over your footwork on a rainy Tuesday in October. And the third pillar, which might just be the most important, mindful focus. His competitive fire was immense, like a furnace, but he never let it spill over into chaotic anger or game-losing anxiety. He learned to channel it like a laser, focusing all that energy into one single thing, executing the next play perfectly. Okay, so a philosophy is one thing, but how do you actually make it real? This is where the abstract mindset becomes concrete, daily action. This is the legendary and, yeah, sometimes infamous TB12 method in action. The ultimate goal of this 24/7 system is brutally simple: eliminate chance. For a player who felt he was given so few chances early on, he became obsessed with leaving nothing to fate. He wanted his performance on Sunday to be the inevitable result of 1,000 tiny, correct decisions made from Monday to Saturday. The whole system was built on 2 pillars. First, rigid lifestyle control to govern his body, and second, the pliability and precision ritual to govern his craft. Let's start with lifestyle. His diet is the stuff of legend, right? It's an 80-20 split. 80% alkaline, plant-based foods meant to fight inflammation, with 20% lean protein like fish and chicken. The core idea is that inflammation is the enemy of recovery and longevity. By creating such a rigid system, he brilliantly removed the need for daily willpower. The decision is already made. There's no debating whether to have that dessert, it's not part of the protocol. And the level of discipline here, it's almost unimaginable for most of us. This went so far beyond just eating healthy. It was a mission to eliminate anything that could possibly cause inflammation. So that meant no white sugar, no dairy, no coffee. He even avoided certain vegetables like tomatoes and peppers because he believed they were inflammatory. This level of control might seem extreme, but it just reveals how deeply he believed that winning the war against physical variables was the absolute key to longevity. His approach to training was just as revolutionary. For decades, the NFL mantra was all about bigger, faster, stronger. Players would lift these heavy weights to build dense, powerful muscle armor. Brady and his trainer, Alex Guerrero, they went the complete opposite direction. They focused on muscle pliability. Think of the difference between a dry, brittle rubber band and a brand new elastic one. Their goal was to make his muscles long, soft, and resilient through intense, deep tissue work. This was never about being the strongest guy in the weight room. It was a strategic investment in injury prevention, allowing his body to absorb the brutal hits of the game and just bounce back, year after year, deep into his 40s. And this obsession, it went beyond the physical. It was intellectual. Even after winning multiple Super Bowls at the absolute peak of his powers, he was known to carry around these handwritten index cards with the most basic reminders on throwing mechanics, notes on his footwork, his release point. It just shows you that he never, ever considered himself a master of the craft. He was a perpetual student, always working, always refining, always fighting against the complacency that ends so many great careers. So when you combined all of these pieces, the rejection fuel, the obsessive mindset, the meticulous diet, the revolutionary training, the result isn't just a successful career. It's a complete redefinition of what's even possible in sports. 23. Just let that sink in for a minute. 23 seasons in the National Football League. This is a league where the average player's career lasts for about 3 years, often ending because of the sheer brutality of the game. 23 isn't just a number. It is the ultimate proof of concept. It is the undeniable result of a system meticulously designed to defy athletic aging, allowing him to compete at the highest level imaginable long after everyone from his own draft class was retired.
And this finally answered the biggest debate of his career. Was it him, or was it the system in New England? For 2 decades, that was the question. Then, at age 43, an age when quarterbacks are usually long retired, he moves to a brand new team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and in his very first season there, wins the Super Bowl. That single act proved it. The engine of his success was portable. It wasn't a coach, it wasn't a franchise, it was his mind. It was his protocol. That was the system.
And this is where the story pivots, because while this is all about a football player, the principles of the Obsession Protocol aren't confined to a football field. They represent a universal blueprint for achieving sustained excellence in any craft, in any field you can imagine. So, I'll ask you directly, what are those details in your life? In your career, in your craft, what are the small, unglamorous, maybe even boring things that your competition just overlooks because they lack the discipline? That is where your advantage is hiding. It's not in the one big, grand gesture. It's in the 1,000 little decisions that no one else is willing to make. So how can you apply this? First, find your own 199th pick. What was that moment of rejection? That slight, that time someone doubted you? Don't bury it. Turn it into a permanent source of fuel. Second, identify your variables. What can you actually control? It might not be your boss or the market, but you can control your sleep, your diet, how much you prepare for a big meeting. Get granular. Third, build a system around those variables. A 24/7 process that makes the right choice the easy choice, removing the need for heroic willpower every single day. And finally, commit to that system with such consistency that high performance stops being an aspiration and it becomes an inevitability. So in the end, who was Tom Brady? Not the most gifted physical specimen to ever play the game, not by a long shot. At his very core, he was a man fueled by rejection. His greatest weapon was never his arm. It was the protocol. It was the systematic, the fanatical, and the relentless control over every small detail of his life that built him into the ultimate competitor and the undisputed champion of longevity. He proved that the gap between good and great, and the gap between great and legendary is not a talent gap. It's a discipline gap. It's found in the courage to do the boring, unglamorous work day after day when no one is watching. Because his story leaves us with one profound lesson. Your ultimate potential isn't found in your talent. It's unlocked in the details.